human self presents to me many challenges that burden me. My heart center shines and calls to me. This is who I choose to be. Sometimes lessons.
Welcome to the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. This is Penny Fisher, and we are so glad you are joining us for this week's episode. Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for being with us today. I can't believe, I know I say this every single time, but I can't believe we are already at episode 24. We are cruising right along. Life is good, right? So, before we hop into talking about the gift of presence, I just want to check in with you, see how everything's going as you've entered the quantum world and you're starting to experience this reality that you create your reality, right? And um, I'm hoping that you're noticing some shifts in the way things are unfolding in your life. And if you're not noticing them yet, I want to just offer you the reminder to give yourself some space and grace. I mean, we've spent at least this lifetime, if not more, in this paradigm that things are done to us and that we don't have control. And so just be gentle with yourselves and be patient and stay with it, because you'll start to see um, really cool things happen. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but there's one of the really great ways to start is a friend of mine calls it parking space karma. Right. So if you know that you're going somewhere where parking can be tricky or difficult, before you leave, like as soon as you think about, start to set it up, just visualize the parking spot that you want, or visualize the best possible parking spot for you in that moment. And then just let it go and say, if it doesn't show up, it doesn't really matter. And start to notice how parking spots just like magically appear for you. I'm just saying. Okay, so let's hop into today's topic. I have to offer a shout out to an amazing group of women. I call them my walk and talk group. I have the privilege to be working with a group called the Energetic Alignment Academy. They coach coaches, spiritual coaches, and life coaches, and it's an amazing, amazing group of human beings. And one of my personal coaches in that program, Jillian, has started a group. We meet at the same time every morning, whoever can hop on, and we walk. And she's got topics for us, and we will just kind of talk our way into things. And the topic the other morning was about being present. And it was just the most beautiful conversation and inspired me. And I thought, this is something that everybody should hear and have permission to kind of live into and think about. And so I want to start by offering you a quote. You may have heard it before. It's from a Chinese philosopher and beautiful human being, Lao Tzu. And he tells us this: if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present. And so I want to unpack with you today a little bit about this idea of being present, right? We hear it a lot. It's a big tenet of that comes out of Buddhist traditions, and it's echoed in lots of other spiritual frameworks, right, from around the world. And when we are present, um, we have disciplined our minds to be still. Now, any of you who know me know that for me, that's like a crazy concept, even because my brain is like the Energizer Bunny on steroids. But when we can engage in a practice that helps us learn to come into stillness, when we get to that place, that center point, um, of stillness, we have permission to just focus on nothing other than what is in front of us. Right. So as I'm sharing this with you, I'm getting this image of this whirling vortex. It's not a bad vortex. It's not dangerous or harmful, but the vortex, the spin, the motion is what our brains are used to and what they've been conditioned to. But if you think about those of you who have experienced or have seen hurricanes, right? You come to a point in the experience of that storm where everything gets still and the sun comes out, and that's the eye of the storm. And what being present is allowing yourself to make your way through the spin of the vortex and come into that place of stillness where the sun is out, where it's calm and peaceful. And that's that centered place. And for me, it's always located in the heart. You might have a different experience of it. That's fine, doesn't matter. But it's that place where we release everything except what is before us in the moment. And I'll be really, if I'm being really honest, that used to absolutely freaking terrify me, right? Because my brain has always been trained to be go, 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 right? What's next on the list? What's next on the agenda? Oh, I have to plan 2 days ahead. And full disclosure, most of my life, I was managing multiple schedules for families, for my partner, for two kiddos. I'm a retired elementary teacher, so I was managing the schedules and the lesson plans for kids who were coming in. And then I became an administrator. And so it's like I'm planning professional development and I'm planning meetings to support my teachers and so the thought of letting all of that go freaked me out. How would I be able to function? Right? You got to be kidding me. Like, let all that go, have a still mind. I don't have time. Right? And then I started to actually do the work. And I began to develop a daily practice that would allow me to spend some time every single day um, in meditation. And what happened for me was I was able to open up to guidance because my mind became still. My mind was no longer this crazy whirling vortex. I was able to be in a place of just absolute 100% stillness. And I was able through that to start to receive guidance from, for me, it was from angels, from ascended masters, from my beautiful power animals, and from my own soul, from my divine I am presence. But I had to be still enough to be able to even know that that guidance existed. Right. So I also noticed this other crazy thing, and it kind of goes with what I talked about when I was doing our check-in about parking space karma. What I noticed was that when I gave myself permission to be in that space of stillness, even for a very short period of time every day, this crazy thing happened throughout the rest of my day. I was actually able to get everything done that needed to be done. And not always, but more often than not, it happened with ease. It happened with this kind of like flow. It was almost like I was able to bend time to fit everything in that I needed to do. And even when it wouldn't go the way I wanted it to, even when the proverbial, and I'm air quoting if you're listening, the stuff would hit the fan throughout the day, I found that because I knew what that place of stillness felt like, I could connect with it and navigate the tricky stuff more easily. Right? Does that make sense? I- It's something I'm working on. Full disclosure, I am not there. I am not coming to you from a place of mastery in any way, shape, or form. But I will tell you that this practice truly changed my life in every way. Um, and I, based on my experience, it will change your life too. Now, let me qualify that. Um, if you're listening to this podcast, or you've listened to any of the series, or you catch my daily gratitude journals on TikTok or Insta or Facebook, um, you know that what I'm all about is helping you to navigate your life in a different way. So if you're listening, I'm guessing you're a person who is absolutely a light bringer, right? Somebody who wants to live their life from a place of ease, from a place of calm. We've talked about this idea of bliss and peace, right? So starting to engage with this practice or develop this practice of being present is not it's not a magic bullet, folks. It's not, oh, I'm going to meditate and then snap, everything in my life is going to be easy. Doesn't work that way. At least that's not my experience. Maybe for you it will. My experience is that little at a time, I am able, by being present, by being in my heart space, to open my heart more and more. So I move out of the spaces of fear, which include judgment, anger, frustration, uncertainty, issues around a lack of self worth, um, uh, jealousy, greed, all those things we don't want to talk about or look at within ourselves, right? And it's not, in my experience, something that happens immediately. It happens little at a time. And so I'm really going to invite you to start to uh, develop a practice that allows you to come to the center of that storm, come to the center of that vortex, rest in your heart space, because from there, you can start to access in very real ways, at least for me, this flow of energy from what we call the cosmic matrix. And if you didn't catch the very, very first episode back on 11/11 of this series, I would invite you to go back um, and check it out, where we talk about this cosmic matrix, this flow of energy that runs throughout the omniverse, that is contains within it the infinitude of the unconditional love of the cosmic heart. And we can invite that into our spaces. There's a real vibration there that can come into our spaces and start to help clear out the things that we don't need, can infuse us with light and love, and help us to navigate the tricky stuff in our lives with much more ease and grace, right? It essentially helps us remember who we really are, because who each and every one of you are is a being of divine light and love. It's just the way it is, right? And the more we do this, the more, when those feelings that Lao Tzu talked about, right? Let's just stay with depression and anxiety, which are both aspects of fear. When those come up for us, we are able, when we can come to the center of the vortex, we can move into that role of being the observer. And I've mentioned this in other episodes, but I think it's really worth mentioning again. When you are having the feeling of being depressed, when you are having the feeling of being anxious, you are not that emotion. You are not the emotion of fear or judgment or frustration or anger. You are having the experience of it. And it's fascinating to me that in the grammatical structure of English, we identify, I am depressed, I am anxious. In many, many other languages, especially those that are based on Latin, right, the Romance languages, the grammatical structure actually translates as I am having depression, I am having anxiety. And when we locate that uh, experience outside of our identity, then we can become the observer and we can look at it and we can say, oh, yeah, I am feeling depressed. I am feeling anxious. I am feeling lonely. We can let our human selves have the experience. And then we can use that emotion to show us where we can love ourselves more. The way we do that is by becoming fully present, not running away from the emotion, right? And this is something that listen, full disclosure, I did this for decades. And I'm sure I've shared this with you before. I 100%, when I first started doing this work, my first teacher, dear friend, sister of my soul, Rosa said to me in my very first session, so Penny, how do you handle anger? And I thought about it and I'm like, you know, I really don't get angry. I find it to be a useless emotion, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turned out, if any of you watch any of the Marvel movies, that I was the Hulk. I was always angry, but it made me uncomfortable and it triggered all kinds of things from my childhood, and I didn't want to look at it. So coming into stillness for me was just not going to happen because when I was still, I couldn't avoid the heavy emotion. And I didn't have the tools to deal with it then. So that was okay. Coming into stillness and then having the tools to be able to navigate what's difficult helps it to shift, to transmute, to transform, to come back into a space of alignment with the unconditional love that you are. And every one of you has tools. The tools that you have might be um, getting yourself on a yoga mat, calling in your angels, calling a practitioner for a Reiki session, putting on some high energy music or some calming and soothing music and dancing around the house. It might be going for a walk. It might be calling a best friend and allowing yourself to dissolve into tears over the pain of that emotion in that moment, knowing that it is not you. It just needs to be processed so that it can be brought back into alignment with love, right? When we know that we have those tools and when we know that that emotion is not us and therefore it ain't gonna last, then coming into the center of the vortex, coming into stillness, becomes not so scary because it's not our reality, right? And when we are willing to just be and breathe into that moment, we can create, truly create, I believe, magic. And it loops back to last week's episode about creating our reality. When we are willing to come into the space of stillness and be present, as we release what we no longer need, we have more room and more space to activate that inner magic, right? It's the workshop that's running on Thursday night on April 25th. Awaken your inner magic, living a life of balance and ease. This is our potential, 100%. So how do we get started with this? Because my feeling is that in order to use, what do I want to call it? The skill. In order to use the skill of being present to walk in our day-to-day lives, we have to know what it feels like, right? And when something's new, we need to practice it in an isolated way, right? So think about when you were a kid, or if you have kids who are learning a new sports skill, right? Maybe you're learning how to make a dribble pass in basketball, or you're learning how to um, you're learning how to do a turn dive if you're a swimmer, right? You don't start out practicing in a competition setting. You don't practice in a game and you don't practice in a meet. You practice in isolation. And I think practicing coming into being present, fully present, we need to do that as part of a daily practice because when we know what it feels like, it's easier for us to access it when we're in the thick of the, and again, I'm air quoting, the thick of the stuff. Okay. And so if you have already have a practice, roll with it, 100%, go for it. If this feels new to you, I would invite you to try something, and you can start with literally 5 minutes every day. If you can do this in the same place and at the same time every day, you're offering yourself a really cool level of support because you'll build up energy in that space. You'll start to feel it. It's not that you can't do it other places, but this will build up energy for you. Okay? And when you get into that space, you can even set a timer for yourself, right? And if starting with 2 minutes feels right, try that. When you get into this space, what I want you to do is get in a comfortable position where your spine is straight. So I have a chair here in the healing room, and when I'm reading or doing some journaling, I tend to lean back in the chair and I have a pillow I put on my lap. When I'm meditating, I take that pillow and I drop it behind me so that I'm sitting up straight. You shouldn't be stiff. You want to be supple and gentle because what we're looking to do here, folks, is allow energy to flow with ease. So you come into this beautiful place, feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, arms uncrossed, and you either close your eyes or let your gaze soften. And I want you to start to breathe, right? My teacher, Rosa, used to talk about bringing her attention to the tip of her nose. It doesn't work for me. I don't do it, but I offer it to you if it helps. And start to notice the breath and the experience of the breath flowing in through your nose, all the way down into the bottom of your torso, and then the breath coming, reversing, coming back out your nose. Just notice, does it feel cool or warm going in? What's the experience of being filled? How does it feel coming out? And just connect with the breath. That's all you have to do. Now, what I pretty much guarantee is going to happen is your beautiful, brilliant, analytical brain is going to go into what a friend of mine calls monkey brain mode. So that you might be able to focus on the breath for what, like 3 seconds? And then the brain kicks in. And the brain says, oh my gosh, I forgot to take something out for dinner tonight. I have to send 3 emails today. I never called to make that appointment for my kid for their annual checkup. Don't judge it, just smile at it. Ah, there's my monkey brain. And bring your attention back to the breath. And you just do this over and over and over. And believe me, if I can learn to come into stillness, anybody can. I pretty much guarantee that. It's a practice, which means it's not going to be perfect and easy the first time. And I will go from having a beautiful, powerful, peaceful meditation one day into like uncontrollable monkey brain the next. So just be gentle with yourself. Okay. The reason I want you to do this is because, again, when you know what it feels like, you can find it when you're in the middle of your day. And I want to take this a step further. Part of this conversation with my walk and talk group was this idea of how do we notice when we're not present, right? So I'm so conditioned to just roll through my day that sometimes I don't even know that I've fallen out of this space of presence. And so I've really been thinking about that. And this is kind of like step two. First, we practice being present. And then as we move through our day, we start to notice when we're not present. And for me, uh, the way that I do that, my little radar detector, is I notice places where I feel uh, stressed, where I have what a friend of mine calls a disproportionate response to a situation, right? So, like, my partner left his dishes in the sink and I'm furious. Their dishes, they're not hurting anything, they'll get done. That's a disproportionate response, at least in my world, it is. Um, it's the place where I'm not happy. And I'm not talking about the euphoric, blissed out happy. I'm talking about like this sense of having an even keel, this sense of being able to just, yep, I can manage this. We're good. Here I go. Right. When I'm when I'm stressed out, angry, frustrated, uh, whatever it is, that's the place where I'm going to start to return to the breath, allow it to bring me back into the center of the vortex. And you can, that's where you use your tools, right? If you need to take a moment and stretch, if you need to go for a short walk, if you need to call someone, put on some music that brings you joy, um, whatever it is you need to do in that moment. Okay. And start to come back to that place of breath that leads you right into the center of the vortex, with it, which is the center of your being, which is your heart, your beautiful, sacred heart space. Because from there, my beautiful, darling bringers of light, you can remember and experience who you truly are. You can tap into the flow of the cosmic matrix. You can invite in guidance from your guides. You can allow heavy emotion without having to be afraid of it. You can experience it heart opening. uh, You can experience heart opening sobbing. You can experience heart opening flows of light. You can be present in the middle of the swirling storm that is our human experience in a way that reconnects you with source energy in whatever way you experience source so deeply that you will remember. You can't help but remember who you are. And as you do this, you're actually opening up energetic pathways in your body. And when you open up energetic pathways in your body, a couple of really beautiful things happen. The first is energy just starts to flow differently. And it can be amazing how aches and pains can shift and transform, right? You can read the work of Louise Hay, right? She wrote an amazing book called You Can Heal Your Life. She talks about how opening up flows of energy can actually heal people from physical illnesses. And when we open ourselves up to the flow of love and light and unconditional love of source energy, again, in whatever way you experience it, and the flow of unconditional love and grounded energy up from the earth. And this energy now can flow to us and through us out into the world, out to those who are in need, not to change anything or fix anything, but simply to offer the vibration of love, which will act as kind of like a little tapping on other people's windows saying, hey, remember, this is who you are. They'll either pay attention to the tapping or they won't. It's not our job. Our job is simply to be love. And in my experience, the way we do that is to come back into full presence in our heart spaces and allow ourselves to rest there. And my darlings, the more you give yourself the gift of being fully present in each moment, the more you are willing to practice this gentle opening, this gentle invitation to your and my crazy monkey brain to return to stillness and just be present, just notice what's happening, the easier it is for us to come back into alignment with presence, with unconditional love, with the truth of who we are. The easier it is to make our default setting that space of the open heart, because we don't have to be in fear anymore. It takes time. It takes practice, but at least for me, it's 100% worth that investment. So again, if you're starting with 2 minutes, then see, maybe you do 2 minutes for a week, then can you go to 3, then can you go to 4? And before you know it, you'll be sitting for whatever time is available to you each and every day. And as we do this, we come into a space of being able to know peace, of being able to know that truth of blissful connection, full connection with source energy. And it will remind you of who you are. You are love. You are light. Your divine blueprint is innate perfection. It's how source sees you because it's who you are. And it is my deep, deep wish that each of you would see yourselves that way, because it really, really is your reality. I am so grateful to each of you for joining me today. I am Penny Starhart. This has been the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. And until we are together again, remember, you are loved and you are loved.
This is who I choose to be. This is who